Hi tubers. I've gotten a lot of requests about what mediums I use, what colors I use, what brushes I use, and canvases and stuff like that. So I thought I was going to give you a little tutorial about this. These are the canvases. They are, originally I buy them like this, and I use I just used a kind of pistol to stick them to, and after that I actually lay down 2 layers more of my Gesso primer. Is this kind, that kind of Gesso primer, and I lay first 1 layer, and this is 2 layers, I think. Yeah, no, there's 1 layer, and that is 2. What happens is that much of the texture in the canvas kind of disappear, and you get some, hard to see now maybe, but you get some textures and some onto the canvas. Then I use a wash of raw umber, you can see, with some turpentine, and I just put a wash on the canvas to make it darker. The reason I do this is that I like to, when I'm gonna paint this here to this canvas now, I like to start with a light part. The light, I start with points and just find the right size, and I just start to mold it into what is going. This is a commissioned work, so I have to start now, and I'm gonna show you how I paint a little bit. I'm not gonna make this video into a 3 or 4 hours one, but and yeah, my colors are, I use different kinds of colors, but I basically use Old Holland, and I also use micael Harding, and I use these quite cheap Da Vinci brushes. They are not so expensive, and they are really good. It is you know, these boar brushes or pig brushes. I also use some of the maybe there's a salon, well, smaller brushes with what do you call it? You know, kind of plastic or something. Yeah, but they're quite nice for the small details. You can also get them in hairs. So it's also Da Vinci. It's not important, but I like these ones. Da Vinci and these types are good. Anyway, I use Old Holland. I have some micael Harding, and I have some Winsor Newton. Winsor Newton is quite good, I think. But I also like the Old Holland because it's thicker. micael Harding is kind of a little bit more oily. Anyway, I used titanium white. Naples yellow is kind of a reddish Naples yellow, reddish extra. I used Naples yellow extra, and I used Naples yellow light, and then I use cadmium yellow light, and I use cadmium yellow deep, and kind of a more orange one, and I use cadmium light, reddish light. I use vermillon, and I use the alizarin crimson as a kind of kraplak kind of, yeah. And I use ultramarine blå and cobalt blå and Prussian blue, and I use raw umber, and I use burnt umber, and I use Van Dyker brown, and burnt sienna, and raw sienna, and ivory black. You can also use ochre, but I would try to keep it to not too many colors, and use the primary colors, because the primary colors you basically are using the same colors as is in the light. You know, when light hit a cloud or something, the white parts usually are in the reddish, and the shadows in the bluish, and in the darker, the mix between the light colors and the shadow colors. And you just have to understand, try to understand Goethe's Favela color circle and the color circles, and just experiment. So here's my palette. I always use the same structure, because the palette is your instrument. If you keep on messing it up and you keep on putting the colors in different places every time, it's going to be like taking tangents on a piano and just put in different places every time you're gonna play, and that would be kind of impossible. So to get into the flow, you have to have the same structure, basically the same structure, so your brain gets used to it, so you don't have to kind of find the colors every time you try to paint something. You need to get into the flow. That's important, because you get into the flow, you start to do it unconsciously, and it gets easier and easier and easier. Yeah, and as a medium, now I have a friend who will get really angry at me saying this, but I use cooked linolje or boiled cooked linolje, as it's called in Norwegian, is boiled lin oil, and I use turpentine, ordinary turpentine, balsam turpentine, and as a furnace I use a retouche furnace, so I can actually see the colors better when I paint between the layers. I mix these two into, I have 30% linseed oil, and 70% turpentine. I don't actually mix the colors on the palette much. I kind of grab, when I paint, I grab the colors and I kind of mix them on the canvas, but it varies, so you just have to find your own way. You have to find the thing. But having the colors on a table would lead you to having to kind of first grabbing the color, mixing them, and then put it on a canvas. It's too far. And to get into the flow, it's better to have the palette in one hand, and so the colors are available close to you, because you don't want to do too many movements. Yeah, because you get out of the flow, and then you get conscious, and then it's harder to see, actually, because there's a different places in the brain that does the different things. Yeah. Maybe I should show you how I... Nah, I shouldn't. Well, I can show you how I do priming. I don't want to bother showing you how I actually... I buy the canvas and the frames. separately. And then I just put the canvas on. So, I'm sorry for all the shaking, but you just have to bear with me. Okay, if you see now, I'll show you what I do. This one has the, yeah, I think this. Yeah, this one. What I do is to just put it up here. Now there's one layer here to get rid of the texture, because if you're going to paint some details, the textures will kind of start fucking with the colors, and you start sending lights all over the place. So it's nice to get some control over get some control of what's happening in the canvas. What I actually do is just use this one, and I just do like this. Just put it on, and freehand lights, and just try to get rid of much of the structure. So, yeah, wait, I need to do the whole operation now to get the point. When I'm finished with this, I do this. I think I showed you in a video this before, but I can do it in this. So you see, I need some paper. Just use some paper. Toilet paper, actually. And I take my raw umber. Actually, I think Winsor Newton's raw umber is a little more blue-greenish, and I don't like the reddish ones because it's not neutral. So I just take turpentine. Do it like this, and do it like this. What you also can do when you are priming the canvas is that you can use pencils and make textures in the grounding, in the gesso. So you can, if you know you want to paint and know where there's going to be texture, you can also build some texture with this, with the gun. We'll save some. If you use expensive colors, use the good colors. It might be a good idea if you can't afford to buy many of them. I do this professionally, and there are tax deductibles for what I use, so it's not that expensive. So, if you get my point, it smells lovely. Just love the smell of turpentine in the morning. I have a little bit more here. So, okay, now Maybe I can get a little bit closer here so you can see. Now when I start now, I don't know what if I'm gonna do this whole painting for you, because there are so many other paintings that shows you what I'm doing. In this box there's all kinds of sizes, and it's a good thing. The problem is that usually I'm left with a lot of the big ones. I do not use a projector. I think that is basically cheating. I think it's important to make it as hard for you as possible. Now his face goes kind of in a half. So what I do is like I think a half, then I think 1, 2, basically a half. So I have to get him approximately up here, I think, there, and probably around here, and I just do this, 1, 2, okay, I have to go all the way down here. It was exactly one brush, 1, 2, and basically a half. So start here. Okay, so that what I do then is to go into this. Now the hair comes down here, so I just start to, okay, there, ear, eye, nose, and cheek. No, cheek is on the side, sorry. Pardon my English. And I just start doing like this. He has glasses on, and you have to kind of place them at the right spot. Funny thing about glasses, it kind of gives you, I said kind of too much, it gives you something to work with. It's quite fun with glasses actually, to work with that. Now this sketch is of course not going to be perfect, but you see how I think when I start placing stuff in the canvas. And then of course it is all about keep on looking and looking and looking and just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until you get it more and more right. And that is basically the whole point. Yeah. He has this blue shirt. There's some lights in here. I kind of start with points and just, it's like you're doing snapshots. Boom, boom, boom. And yes, like snapshots anyway. Many snapshots. You see the way I hold my palette. My cards are close to me. I move around, and when I put on music and I play music, it just becomes a dance. It's a beautiful feeling, and I recommend it as a hobby. It will really enrich your life if you have it as a hobby. It's hard to do it professionally because, you know, finding galleries and stuff is It's not easy, but I would recommend it to anyone, or any kind of creative work. I would recommend it for anyone. So, yeah. And you can just go down here, this blue shirt, and the shoulder comes out, and his hands are kind of down here, approximately. His neck goes in there. So I did a mistake there, and that's the whole thing. You just keep on moving it around. If you use a projector, you will lose all the mistakes, and the mistakes creates texture, and texture creates life. And when people are looking at paintings, they shouldn't look so much on the motif. The motif is just a motif. If you want to learn how to paint, you have to go into the painting, go to look in the books, and the best thing is to see paintings in real life and try to understand how it's painted. Because for most artists, even the old masters, for them the motifs weren't the most important things, especially when it comes to Rembrandt and the big masters. It was the paint itself, the process, and you can see that in all the beautiful structures and textures and they created. This is totally wrong now because I'm talking, I'm not concentrating. I'm just trying to teach you how to think. So, and also you are using. There's a light here. There are shadows behind here, and the background. You have to figure out it's the background darker or lighter, and then you can use the background to bring out this side. Now there's not much light behind here, so that would be a problem later. But then again, it's just to keep on seeing and seeing, observing. And yeah. So that is basically. As I say, when you go to a museum, look at how it's painted. And when you understand the importance of texture, brush strokes, stuff like that, you will be able to understand, when you see the paintings, almost how the painter was thinking when he was doing it. You can see the personality of the artist. Well, I'm not going to keep on doing this, so it's just to show you. And I'm almost out of time in this short blip of a video, which I'm not going to make into a big one. I really do appreciate that people like what I'm doing, and you can add me as a Facebook friend if you send me a personal message. You can go to my pages and like them, and you can share my videos on social media, which will help me by spreading my art and my stuff. And that is basically, yeah. I could maybe show you how I painted this one. You see the textures and skin colors are just kind of, and I use the colors quite brightly, almost like the Impressionists. That is how I view it. As many figurative artists, they don't use so much color. Actually, it looks more yellow here. It's actually more reddish in real life. I I guess it's the camera. But yeah, I can't really think about anything more to tell you. See, I used the blue and the yellows and the reds, and then I kind of put them in contrast to one another to build these things. And it don't have to be that detailed, really. Not like this. I also have this painting over here called The Human Condition, where I took some paintings from some pictures from Afghanistan and some other stuff from the internet, and I just painted it more fluently, like this. I like this. It's so nice to work like that sometimes. This little girl, just this boy, and but usually I do more detailed work. So, and I do still lifes, and I do portraits, and I used to do a lot of live models. I have to start doing that again. Some self-portraits. I would really recommend to paint self-portraits, because you are probably the most what do you call it? The model who will stick around for the longest time. You know, a girl comes to you in the city and says, "Oh, can you paint me?" And then you start to paint, and after a while they get tired of it, and so yeah, you can't really. If you're gonna trust a model, you have to pay them. Anyway, yeah. I hope this were a little bit enlightening. So, and with this, I beg you, fine farewell.